If you follow the micro brand watch space, then you definitely have heard of Traska watches. The brand has been around now for 5 years, and weirdly, this is the first time one of their watches has made their way to me for review. And I have here their inaugural model, which has become their flagship model, the Freediver. This is version 5 of the Freediver, and I didn't realize all the changes over the years to this piece until looking at pics of all versions. Version 5 or V5 is said to be the last as far as design changes, and pretty much his perfect version of what is essentially a masculine dress diver. A watch that is clearly a dive watch, but less rugged in appearance, one that can be worn in any situation and not look out of place. This model comes in at $660 and currently can be had in four dial colors. It, of course, has a sapphire crystal, a ceramic bezel insert, a Miyota 9019 or 9039 movement, and a stainless steel case and bracelet with hard coating. Is this the perfect do anything diver? Is it the perfect dress diver? Let's find out. First off, I'm not sure why it has taken so long for me to review a Traska watch. I should have a long time ago, but then again, I like that we are here at version 5 of this freediver, as this is the perfect version as far as the owner John is concerned. Upgrades may happen with materials and craftsmanship going forward, but he has said that this is basically the last design change. With that said, I am very familiar with the brand. I see the posts on social media, especially the images from Ty Alexander, as he does all of the photographs for the brand. But like I said, I guess I never really paid attention to all the changes that each model had. And while they may have been incremental from one version to the next, when you look at version 1 and then at version 5, they are pretty different watches. I'll put some images on screen of each here so you can take a look. And from version 1 to version 2, the biggest changes were the hands, as they were definitely leaning more dressy or classy. And with V2, we got more blocky straight hands. Some of the other changes through the versions have been a ceramic bezel insert instead of sapphire, case changes, and movement changes as well. I'll link to a reference article from Traska down in the description that goes over more of these changes. But to me, the biggest change was the case design. And I guess I had an image of maybe version 2 or 3 in my head where the case sides were a little more slab sided and also brushed steel. That is not the case anymore, no pun intended. So let's take a look here. On screen, you will see all the specifications. And as you can see, I have the white dial version, and all of them are either available with date or no date. So you'll either get the 9019, which is a thinner version of the Miyota 9015, or the no date 9039 movement. Other colors are black, the very popular mint, and one called Sun Bleached Orange, which I refer to as salmon. All come with a black ceramic bezel insert. I do believe though that one of the versions that were offered had steel bezel inserts as well, but those seem to be a thing of the past. And the design here, well, I definitely do see the dress diver aspect of it. It doesn't look like a hardcore diver. It doesn't have a Lume triangle. This isn't a Seiko Prospex or Citizen. It's not meeting ISO certifications, but yet it still does have a screw down crown, of course. It's water resistant to 200 meters. So it's not like I'm saying this isn't meant for water or that you're going to have to baby it, but design wise, this is a softer dive watch, if you will. And speaking of soft, let's take a look at the case sides where they're less slab sided than previous iterations and a little more rounded and bulbous, and they're also fully high polished. The sign crown is high polished as well, and so are the edges of the bracelet, but the top of the case and bracelet are all brushed. Now, as many of you know, I'm not a big fan of high polished for many reasons, as I have discussed in many videos. But I prefer more of a polished thin chamfer over a fully polished case. But I will say it does look pretty good. And if I haven't mentioned it, these watches do have a hard coating on them, much like RZE and others do. And while this will not keep them scratch free forever, it'll keep them looking new a little bit longer. Another thing about this case is how thin it is compared to previous versions. The originals used the Seiko NH35, and switching to the Miyota movements allowed John to make the case slimmer. And now with V5, with the case redesign, the entire watch became slimmer as he felt he needed to tone down the ruggedness of the case, as the dial now had sharper and bolder hands and the maxi indices from the V4 refresh. Again, the goal here was always the perfect mesh of casual and dress in a dive watch. And speaking of the dial, yeah, maybe went a little on the boring side here with the white dial, but I just like the white dial with the black outlined hands and that black bezel. It just looks so fresh and clean. And even though that mint dial is probably the most popular, I just thought it would be good to check out the white dial, as I feel sometimes these are overlooked. And let me just say, with the exception of automatic on the dial, this is one of my favorite executions of a dial, especially on a three-hand dive watch. It's large but not oversized indices, hands that are actually black and not just steel colored to really stand out against that matte white dial, and the text is kept to a minimum. And this is a no date, but if you want a date, one is available, and it's placed at the perfect spot, the 6 o'clock position. The bezel was made to be sharper, allowing for more grip on the coin edge with V5, and I could say grip is excellent, as is turning it. And they state this has a crisper, more precise turn, and I will say that it does have a crisp and very precise turn, but this bezel also has some wobble. Now, it's not loose and it doesn't affect function, but much like the ball that I recently reviewed, there is some wobble to it, as I demonstrate here on video. Now, I am going to assume that this is not a QC issue, but rather a specific type of bezel assembly. Speaking of precise, crown action is very good as well. I liken it to very good steering feedback in a good performance car. It just has that good click to it when pulling it out or screwing it back in. And like I said, this just has a really good feeling to it, and one that I'm surprised to see on a watch at this price. Now, the bracelet has apparently gone through quite a few changes over the years, and while it may look like a standard Oyster link, it's a little more refined than your basic strap code bracelet. The links are fully articulated so they can kind of fold up on themselves. You have female end links and thick lug tips, so this bracelet and watch and the lugs, it's svelte but not exactly dainty. The clasp is also the latest clasp. This is one of those tool-less adjustment clasps. You've seen them in Zelos and Christopher Ward and many other brands. There's a little push mechanism inside, and you see not like a little piece of an extension, but it actually pushes the link inside and out, gives you a little extra room for that perfect fit. Now, one thing here, I don't know if this clasp has the hard coating to it, but it is a pretty nice looking clasp. It's brushed on top, nice polished chamfer, and it all works together very nicely. Oh, and before I get to how this wears on the wrist, one thing I forgot to mention were the top and bottom of this watch, meaning the top hat style sapphire crystal or box crystal, and how it just sits slightly above the bezel, and then how flat the case back is. Yes, it does protrude a little from the mid case, but this is a pretty flat case back that really disappears on the wrist. And with that, how does it wear on my 7.5 inch or 19.05 centimeter wrist? I have to say, this is one very comfortable watch. You have that 40.5 millimeter width, the 48 millimeter lug to lug. It doesn't feel large nor too small on my wrist, and between the way it sits on my wrist and that fully articulating bracelet, it really is a pleasure to wear, especially if you're someone like me that likes to wear a watch all day, including while he sleeps. Oh, and I did take out a few links, and as you can see, there are half links as well. The last link on each side of the clasp is actually a half link, another thing to help obtain that perfect fit. Lastly, we get to the Lume, and I'll give it a grade B. The BGW9 is nice, and I guess the surface area is there, but this does not glow like a Seiko. But I think that keeps it in line with the dress diver ethos they have going on. And unless you go with larger or thicker hands and indices, a watch like this will not exactly be a Lume monster. Still, it is more than sufficient and evenly applied. So it's taken me 5 years to get a Traska in hand for review, but I'm glad that I did. And this is the version that John feels is the best one yet. His perfect version of a vintage casual dress diver, one that is svelte but still masculine, one that is inspired by pieces of the past but not a copy and barely an homage, and one that can truly be worn in any setting. I would say he achieved that. But I want to know what you think of it. Head to the comments and let me know, is this the perfect dress diver? Also, would you like to see me review more from Traska? And if so, which model? Let me know down in the comments as well. And while you're at it, please make sure to do the whole like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It greatly helps out the channel. All links will be down in the description, including one to my written review. This is Don Evans from Watch Report. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.